Can we show all these people that are pointing at me? Can we put them on camera? All right, there you go. We got a jib. It's moving over. This is a powerful machine. There you go. All right, our video of the day, though, is truly stunning. During an interview yesterday with a border agent near McAllen, Texas, an ABC News crew ran into a human smuggler. Watch this.
So this is one of the areas where almost exclusively the smugglers use it to smuggle unaccompanied children and family units into the U.S.
So those migrant families, this is one of the pathways they come through right here?
This is the main pathway here in the McAllen Station's area of responsibility. Pásale. ¿Cuántos más vienen? Look, there's a smuggler. Espérate ahí, espérate ahí.
We have Border Patrol just got a smugglers. That's a smuggler?
This is the smuggler right here.
And Adrian Rodriguez, you can't go in there.
I cannot go in the river to apprehend him.
Unbelievable. All right. We will always be fair and balanced, but not to destroy Trump media. Let not your heart be troubled. There she is. I never get a second late. Tucker, it's 10 seconds early, 15 seconds late. He's never on time. I meet the post. That's 30 years of professional radio experience. Hello, Laura.
Wait a second. It's 12 seconds into my time. 13, 14, 15,
oh, gee.
16.
No.
Sean,
at 10 o'clock, the words Laura Ingraham came flying out of my mouth.
Hannity, I got to say, I love being in the double boxes with you. It's like the old days. Back, remember the 2000 election? We're up until like 2 in the morning. It was going back and forth. That was the old days.
So I'm doing Mark Levin's show. So I fly to D.C. after the show last night. It's going to be on this Sunday. And I'm in D.C. today. And I get in the hotel room last night, and there you are. And I watched your whole show, which I often miss because I'm driving home.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for the support,
good show.
Hannity. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Have a good show.
Good evening from Washington. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle, a big day in D.C. Huge show for you tonight. We're going to talk to Mike Huckabee about the left's new vigilante politics. First, it was his daughter. Now he's been targeted by the PC police, as well as the majority leader of the U.S. Senate. Also, even after the Supreme Court backs Trump's travel ban in a new ruling, Democrats are still saying, well, it's racist. We're going to debate the fallout. And Victor Davis Hanson, it's always fun, he has an inventive way for the left to put its money where its mouth is when they talk of welcoming illegal immigrants and asylum seekers to the country. It's a debate you're not going to want to miss. But first, the new know-nothings. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, the Democrats like to portray themselves as members of the enlightened class. They're the elites, and conservatives are the vulgarians. So Trump, of course, to them is the ultimate know-nothing, right? I mean, he's a guy who shoots from the hip and the mouth. He hasn't marinated himself sufficiently in the writings of, let's say, Aristotle and Plato. And he doesn't understand world history or the complexity of geopolitics. He lacks compassion and is so crass.
I think it is fair to note that the president is vulgar. I mean, is vulgar, has insulted private citizens.
He watches a lot of cable television, no matter what he says. But his lack of reading, lack of interest in reading is a big contrast to our last two presidents.
He doesn't have any empathy, even for his recovering wife. He doesn't have any empathy for anyone.
Meanwhile, the same left-wingers who claim Trump is a lowbrow ignoramus are conspiring to make our children something far worse in my mind. Not only do today's liberals, many of them, hate our American traditions and a lot of our heritage, but they're also the agents of a historical and cultural purge, the likes of which I don't think we've ever seen in our nation. Now, you know it's gotten bad when just this week leftist librarians took it upon themselves to strike Laura Ingalls Wilder's name from a major children's book award. The American Library Association first awarded the prize to Wilder herself back in 1954, and they later named it after her. But now the librarians claim that Wilder's work includes stereotypical attitudes not consistent with values regarding the depiction of Native Americans. Now, I think I'm right here, but Little House was, after all, set in the 1800s in Minnesota. So don't we want to know how people in the past lived, how they thought, and frankly, how they survived? My view is that if we hide or worse demolish our history, where do our children go to learn the lessons of the past? So I guess Mark Twain, Truman Capote, Flannery O'Connor, Harper Lee, and those other stereotypical writers, will also soon have to be banned as well. So who are the real book banners now? Well, I guess there's always those lovely PC graphic novels kids. Now, this is the same leftist mentality that has led to, of course, the destruction of historical markers and statues all over the country. What amount to Marxist city councils have ordered the removal of Confederate monuments from public spaces, removing history altogether rather than allowing the next generation to see it, interpret it, and yes, debate it. Now, these official acts, I think, have inspired left-wing activists to take it upon themselves to topple or deface statues, which, for good or for bad, of course, are part of our national memory. And by the way, I'm saying this as a Connecticut Yankee. I got no affinity for the South. But it doesn't stop there. Even this 1925 World War I cross memorial in Maryland is now considered offensive to militant atheists. They filed a suit to have the memorial removed, and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals agreed with them and ordered the Peace Cross's demolition. So now, who are the intolerant know-nothings again? The left, I would submit, is so blinded, dogmatic in their ideology and their hatreds that they refuse to accept even basic facts, sometimes scientific facts. Abortion is but one example. Now, they continue to deny the obvious truth of human life in the womb. Now, far from an article of faith, religious understanding, this is an established scientific fact, and we have the pictures to prove it. Who could deny that an ultrasound of a 12-week-old child, preborn child in the womb, is a living human being, growing and living? Oh, but groups like Planned Parenthood and the Democratic Party at large, well, they're determined. Look the other way. I don't even like the fact that people can see this. Mothers seeing these images. The visual evidence, the proof of life, is a threat to the abortion racket. Make hundreds of millions of dollars on this. Don't look. The left is so anti-debate, so anti-dialogue, that they prefer to intimidate now and demonize their political opponents rather than convince them. Convince them that their argument's the right one. Bring people along to your point of view. No, we're not going to do that. Instead, they resort to slander or labeling conservatives or Trump supporters as, remember Hillary called them, the deplorables. Obama said they're people clinging to their guns and their religion. Now, we've told you about those 2016 texts. This all bleeds through the process, all the way down to FBI agents working on the Hillary Clinton probe. One said that Trump supporters, not deplorables, but they're all poor to middle class, uneducated, lazy, POS, look it up if you don't know what it means, that think he will magically grant them jobs for doing nothing. Another referred to his voters from Ohio as, quote, retarded. Nice. No bias there. But sadly now, it's gotten even worse.
Because we now know that we have in the White House someone who could lead the Ku Klux Klan in the United States of America. Somebody who could be the leader of the neo-Nazi.
If you vote for Trump, then you, the voter, you, not Donald Trump, are standing at the border like Nazis going, you here, you here.
Tens of millions of people voted for him after he showed his cards for years.
But are you suggesting that they're racist, or they're
yes?
The people who vote, all the people who voted for Donald Trump are racist?
Yes.
At least they're being honest now. That's what they always felt. Now they're actually saying it. So understand this. By casting their political opponents as a despicable, frankly subhuman class, the left now has a blanket license to attack them and target them in public.
They're not going to be able to go to a restaurant. They're not going to be able to stop at a gas station. They're not going to be able to shop at a department store. The people are going to turn on them. They're going to protest. They're going to absolutely harass them until they decide that they're going to tell the president, no, I can't hang with you.
Harass them when they go into public places. Surround, crowd. What does that lead to? Well, it's expected the leftist renegades have absorbed this message from the political class. It's now open season on conservatives. Activists are now papering White House advisor Stephen Miller's neighborhood in D.C. with wanted posters bearing Miller's image. Wanted posters! Treating a White House official like a criminal to be hunted and captured. Completely justified in their minds. Now, for months, the left has been insisting of course, that the president's immigration policies, especially his travel ban, was unconstitutional. They derided Trump and his administration as racist for attempting to prohibit immigration and travel from certain volatile hotspots, same ones that Obama targeted as hotspots himself. Now, again, the left refuses to acknowledge basic truths, basic facts. It's a national security threat, and it's posed by immigration from certain regions in the world. We can't vet these people. No systems in place. Well, the court today weighed in, not only ruling that the president has the statutory authority to control and regulate immigration, frankly, it should have been a 9-0 case, but that the ban does not contain any religious or anti-Muslim bias.
The ruling shows that all of the attacks from the media and the Democrat politicians are wrong, and they turned out to be very wrong.
Now, the left was stunned that the Supreme Court sided with Trump on the travel ban. DNC Deputy Chair Congressman Keith Ellison, without so much as even an attempt at a glancing reference to statutory interpretation, he reacted this way.
Gorsuch really should not be on the Supreme Court. In my view, he may be there, but he's not there properly. You can do that. I mean, you can jam in a Supreme Court by denying a sitting president their right to appoint the Supreme Court justice. That is exactly what happened. And Gorsuch has just done what his paymasters sent him there to do.
Last part is key. Not a real justice. He's just doing what his paymasters said to do. This guy has a storied career as a jurist on the Federal Court of Appeals. So no legal rebuttal to the statutory interpretation of the court, no attempt at a rational argument, just personal demonization of a Supreme Court justice. Now, in the 1850s, America saw the rise of the Know Nothing Party. It was an anti-immigrant and anti-Catholic political movement that sprang from what was ultimately a secret society. And today, we're seeing the rise of another Know Nothing Party made up of secret forces deployed to undermine the will of the people and their representatives. They know nothing of facts, nothing of history, and nothing of the damage that they're doing now to the Republic. They're called Democrats. And that's the angle. Joining me now for reaction is Garland Nixon, a radio talk show host, and Sean Duffy, a Republican congressman from Wisconsin. Garland, I know you're chomping at the bit. Your reaction?
Well, immediately my first reaction to the vitriol is that it's not good for the country, that it is a bad thing to do. It's bad for the party, and the Democratic Party should be focusing on policy. That being said, I think that the president has to take some credit, if that's the right word, for this toxic environment we're in. I think he has lowered the level of discourse. He started off during his campaigning by talking about punching people, beating people. He's called the NFL players SOBs. So I think that this is a rare toxic atmosphere in Washington, D.C., but I think the president has to take a lot of responsibility for it. It wasn't here before him, and he started off with that vile kind of
I think the culture
talking.
For a while has been in decline. Long before Trump, whether it's billboards, music lyrics, what we're seeing on the small screen and the big screen, the way we talk to each other online, social media, way before Trump.
But listen, I think it's commendable that Garland says he's going to call out the left for this this outrageous behavior. Not many Democrats have done that, so kudos to you for that. The problem is what they do on the left is say, well, Donald Trump uses language we don't like. Okay, I don't like all of Donald Trump's language either. However, he's not shutting down anyone's speech. And in the great debate stage of ideas, liberals can't win. So if you're Milo Yiannopoulos or you're Ben Shapiro and you go to a college campus, they shut down their speech. If you're the IRS, you shut down conservative groups from organizing. If you're Secretary Nielsen, you'll go to her house and shut her down there. If you're actually Peter Strzok, you'll say, I'm going to shut down the will of the American people and an electorate. I'm going to undo it in the FBI. There's a difference in speech versus taking action to shut down speech. I would say if you look at this young lady who yelled F you to the president as you walked into the Capitol
a congressional
last
intern.
Week. She has a right to say that. I don't agree with it. She can say it. But this is not a speech issue. The left is engaged in something far different, far more vitriolic. And I think, if I could just make one last point, they tried this in Wisconsin. Remember Act 10 and Scott Walker?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Good point.
They rallied.
Taking over the State House. They were hanging over the rafters.
They were yelling shame. Yeah. They were spitting on it. And guess what? Americans, Wisconsinites,
they don't like it.
Who are these people? They didn't like it. And Scott Walker got more votes in the recall than he did in the first election.
Yeah, I think what we see, though, is the targeting of individuals. This is different. I don't even mind if someone yells. They yell F you. It's like not cool, but people do that. They can lose their temper. It's the targeting of individuals, putting a wanted poster in a neighborhood, telling people to crowd around other people. So you can disagree with Trump. You don't like the travel ban. You don't like the immigration. That's fine. And debate. I have no problem with that. There's interesting debates on both sides. But the targeting, Garland, is what I find to be that's scary. Because when you get crowds of people around an individual in a public, doesn't matter if a public place, if they feel another person is subhuman, I mean, we saw this in the racist South. People were considered subhuman, and they felt like they could do anything to Black America. And now you get the sense that we're in that really scary place now. That to me is terrifying.
Yeah, well, but I don't feel that there's one side or the other. For instance, I feel
where's Donald Trump telling to crowd around someone and target them? He's not saying that.
No.
He uses crass language sometimes, which I don't like.
Right, and I would agree with you. It's not necessarily one person. He's gone after our allies. He's gone after NFL players. He's gone after Justin Trudeau, and he goes after
Justin Trudeau.
I mean, the guy's the Canadian Prime Minister.
Yeah, Justin Trudeau. I don't think he's gone after him.
But my point being, I think that the president has a lot of responsibility here, and that if he wants things to change, he's the leader. Where the head goes, the body follows. He needs to tone it down.
So you're saying if Donald Trump had zero tolerance at the border, which is enforcing the law on the border, so we don't just release people back into the country, that there wouldn't be these massive protests and the vitriol and what we said on these signs, and you're an inch away from someone's face like they were Pam Bondi down in Florida. You don't think they'd be doing it? I do.
What I'm saying is I think we've gone to a style of politics in Washington, D.C. that is about people instead of policy. So no, it's about attacking the person, attacking the leader of a country, attacking the leader of the party, but there's very little policy being done
I want to
play
something.
Now.
Okay, I want to play something. Now, this is Keith Ellison, Deputy DNC Chair. He's a Muslim American. He was on CNN today, and he was basically not telling the truth about his ties to another hater, Louis Farrakhan. Let's watch.
You've been decrying President Trump's bigotry. Obviously, you used to follow somebody who continually expressed sexist, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-Semitic bigotry, Louis Farrakhan. You have condemned Farrakhan's bigotry. But
I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that, sir. But
what are you disagreeing with?
That comes up in this context.
Well, you're decrying bigotry, and Louis Farrakhan is a pretty clear bigot.
Right, and I agree that that's true. Nobody
you were a follower of Farrakhan. You were a follower of Farrakhan, sir.
No, I wasn't. Jake, I'm sorry. That's not true, Jake.
No, it is true. I mean, I give credit to Jake Tapper for that because he actually called him out on this.
For giving him some push and, again, siding with a hate group, a violent group. Laura, I think your angle was absolutely awesome in that this is a debate about the freedom of speech. Can we actually have a political conversation where we disagree with each other? Very difficult issues that we face. We should all be able to have a conversation and disagree, and we should actually vote. Whether it's a bill in Congress or it's an election, we debate, we argue, and then we vote. That's what we do, but we don't shut down speech. I mean, the college campus front is so outrageous that we can't bring conservative speakers to campus because the left is so unhinged that they know they can't win the debate with a conservative Ben Shapiro. This has gone too far.
I also I've got to say, the people that they're targeting are like these horrible. I mean, they all are like these small guys. I mean, they're little guys, like innocuous.
Ben Shapiro's
like this, and Stephen Miller he's like some hulking threat. But I mean, come on, he's like a nerdy guy. Sorry, Stephen, but you're like a nerdy, like conservative guy.
And I think what's being missed here, I was just looking at the results today with Representative Crowley. The other part that's being missed here is that even within the Democratic Party, there's the same debate because the Bernie people, which is the clique that I fall into, are saying some of the same things about the resistance, saying we've got to go
Bernie doesn't
away
believe that.
So
Bernie's
we've
not
got to
into
go
that.
away from just saying Russia, 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 and I hate Trump, and to get to some policies. And that so this
He's an old-fashioned liberal. He's more of an old-fashioned liberal.
Believe it or not, some of the things that you guys are saying right here are some of the very same things that the
I
Bernie
tweeted
people
out
are
last
saying
night,
to the resistance.
or I said it on
Get
air. I
back
can't
to
remember.
policy.
I'm so tired. I didn't like it when the president said, "Get your asses out." Sorry, and vote. You don't have to say that. I know that's like a little.
I don't like
thing.
when he said he was going to punch people in the face.
But he said that was one time. It's not. I don't like that either.
But here's the difference. We called him out when he said that.
Yeah, but I said I don't like that word. I don't like that word being used. Sorry. I mean, not to say I'm not perfect on that score, but I just like you don't have to. You can just make your point in a different way. And he's winning on the substance. I'm sorry, but he's winning on the economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's winning on trade. There's pushback in the Republican Party. I think he's winning on that. Maybe have progress in North Korea. He's winning. He doesn't need. You don't need to go personal.
The Harley-Davidson workers actually support President Trump and his effort on trade. They came out today.
Well, they're going to have a lot of time to support him because they're going to be
a lot of Democrats support him on trade. I give him credit on that.
I think the point when you see Steve Scalise shot on the baseball field, or
someone is going to get hurt here.
Kustoff was run off the road, a congressman from Tennessee. Death threats are increasing to offices like mine and other members of Congress. This is going too far. We need to take the temperature down, and it's leaders on both sides. Democrat leaders, Republican leaders. Take it down. Don't support people when they incent and prevent violence.
Let's not forget all the gun references. When Gabby Gifford was shot, and all of the.
Oh yeah, well, the left went crazy on the so-called targeting that Sarah Palin had on her website. So I mean, I think everybody's got to acknowledge the culture. It drifts downward, and it goes into politics, and it goes into our kids' minds. And all of us, I said this last night, all of us have to do better, including yours truly. I appreciate both of you. It's awesome to have you on. And now, it seems like the left is on a mission to make it impossible to be a conservative in public. When we come back, we'll show you more. The left's turn to vigilante politics is not slowing. Protesters descended on the apartment of senior presidential advisor Stephen Miller yesterday, chanting, "Immigrants are welcome here." Well, who said they weren't welcome in the apartment? I'm sure they are. They passed out wanted posters calling Miller a white nationalist. Oh, that's original. Accusing him of crimes against humanity and promoting Nazi and other extremist ideologies. They're so tedious. They got to come up with some new lingo. Additionally, late-night comedians are attacking White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, not because of anything she did, but because she was recently asked to leave a Virginia restaurant because of the president's policies.
Well, this weekend, Sarah Huckabee Sanders got to do what conservative white women love most, speak with a manager.
Turns out her server asked her what she wanted as an appetizer, and out of habit, she refused to answer. And
what do you mean you treat everybody with respect? You work for Donald Trump. You don't even treat yourself with respect.
Now, the Daily Show host Trevor Noah's comments were too obscene to even give you a bleeped-out version tonight, just to give you a flavor on that. So for insight on the left's sharp turn away from civility in politics, let's bring in Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee, host of Huckabee on Saturday and Sunday, by the way, on TBN, and former governor of the great state of Arkansas. All right, Gov, you gave me some good news on my radio show on Monday. You broke it that red hen manager walked across the street with a group of people and followed your daughter's family, because she was already gone, to another restaurant. Yeah. So they apparently can't eat anywhere, period. But now you see Stephen Miller being targeted with these wanted posters, which again incites people to do what? When someone's wanted for crimes against humanity, what are you telling other people to do to him? That's my question to you.
Well, I think, if we go back to Mayberry RFD, you'd start hearing Gomer Pyle yell, "Citizens arrest, citizens arrest." What you're almost asking people to do is intervene, as if Stephen Miller has done anything that violated the law. He didn't. He's a policy guy. You labeled him pretty well a moment ago. Not very complimentary in some ways, but pretty accurately. He's a very nerdy policy guy. Brilliant, beyond brilliant. But he is no screaming kind of guy. He is a, nose to the grindstone sort of fella. But when this becomes personal and people take it away from the public venues of a town hall or a speech in public at a university campus, and they start taking it to people's homes, and they start making it so that a person like Pam Bondi can't go see a Mr. Rogers movie, or so that my daughter can't even go and even get to the appetizer, because the moment she gets there, the manager tosses her out and tells her to leave. I mean, that's the kind of thing we saw at lunch counters in the 60s, and I thought we were never going to see that again. It's pretty sad.
Had Sarah thought, and you always think in retrospect, she was just so polite. She didn't want to make a big stink of anything, so she just left. Did she ever think maybe I should have stayed? I think of those Starbucks, those African-American men at Starbucks. They decided to stay, let the police come. I mean, my tendency would say, okay, you want me thrown out? You're going to have to bring the police to throw me out. This is a public place. Did she think that in retrospect to do that?
No, I don't think so, because my daughter is not the kind of person who was raised to be disruptive. She really wasn't. She doesn't have this attitude that people owe her something. She honestly believes if the lady doesn't want her there, then why should we want to stay? But I do think her attitude was, I could stay and make a scene. Sure, I could demand that she serve me. But to what end? How does that serve a growing level of civility? The truth is it doesn't. So when the manager made it clear that she wanted her to exit the restaurant, she did it quietly and she did it politely. That's the way Southern women do things. They don't disrespect others. Laura, as my mother used to say, when we did something that was not very nice, were you raised by wolves? And I look around and I realize there's some people in this country who, yes, seem to have been raised by wolves rather than mothers and fathers who taught them good manners.
Now, Sarah I understand she has a secret service detail on now with her. That was announced today. And my question is she going to be dining out in Washington anytime soon? Is she feeling like she doesn't want to put herself through this or her family through this again?
Yeah, I can't confirm about the detail because I haven't heard it from her. I saw it on Twitter tonight. First I had seen that. If so, two things. I'm glad. I think she needs it in light of Peter Fonda's comments when he said he hoped someone would break into her home and kidnap her children. I'll tell you, Peter Fonda ought to be in jail tonight, and I mean that sincerely. The man ought to be in jail for having said that kind of thing. But I think Sarah's going to live her life as best she can. But, one of the things this is doing, Laura, it's giving Republicans and Democrats a real message clarity as we move into the election season. And here's the way I see it. Quite frankly, for Republicans, every day is the 4th of July. For Democrats, every day is Halloween. And America will get to decide whose message do they want to follow, the celebration of freedom or throwing eggs at people's homes?
Yeah, it's pathetic. I mean, if she were on the other foot, there'd be massive protests against this type of behavior. Now, Governor, Twitter video shows protesters confronting Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and his wife, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, last night. Now, Chao forcefully told protesters to leave her husband alone while they yelled out, "How do you sleep at night?" My question to you is, this is standard operating procedure. Look at you can tell one thing, the baseball hat worn backwards. That's always classy. What are you 3 years old? This is what there's no debate. It's public shaming of individuals who support Trump or try to even have a job working for Trump.
Well, a couple of observations. One, it's maybe fashionable to yell at Mitch McConnell. Wouldn't go after Elaine Chao. It's clearly indicative that they don't know her very well, wouldn't mess with her. But, Laura, isn't it interesting that all the people that they target typically are women? I mean, for the most part, it's Melania, it's Ivanka, it's Sarah, it's Pam Bondi, it's Kirstjen Nielsen, Elaine Chao. What is it with these people? It's misogyny, it's sexism, it's hatred of women. And I think that it ought to be pretty clear to America. I hope they see it. I hope they recognize it. Yeah, and I hope they thoroughly reject it as ridiculous.
Yeah, grown men wearing backpacks is also suspect. I'm sorry. Thanks, Governor. We appreciate it. Now, it's not just politicians getting harassed by leftists. In Tulsa, Morgan Casper found a hateful note on his porch condemning his support of Trump. I love bringing in regular people who have to deal with this in their lives. So the person who left the note kept returning. So Morgan confronted her with a camera, great job, to find out why she was targeting him. Morgan joins us to tell us what the harasser said. Give us the whole story. Morgan,
hello.
Good to see you.
See you too.
This is like you're now considered brave because you support Donald Trump and don't hide it, apparently. Yeah. What happened?
No, so I'm a very loud Trump supporter in my neighborhood. There was Bernie Sanders posters everywhere and Hillary posters everywhere. So I was like, why not? I'm just going to put a Trump sign up.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like she didn't like that, and I got hateful notes left on my porch.
Were they threatening, or were they just like, you're a racist, you're a terrible person?
They were just like, you're a racist, you're a terrible
Yeah.
person, just because I'm a Trump supporter.
So you wanted to find out like who it was. You didn't know who it was.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out who it was, so I got a camera and caught her on camera. Caught her on tape. So,
Now, your wife is Indian, and they said you hated dark-skinned people.
yes, correct.
Yeah, I happen to have adopted kids, and one of them's from Guatemala. So when they say that to me, I just laugh. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, how many people have you brought into your house that needed help? You know,
Yeah, it's funny. It's just funny how they assume, just because I'm a Trump supporter, they assume that I'm a racist, I don't like women, all that stuff. It just makes no sense to me.
But what is her? If you ever try to dig into their mind, I mean, it might not take very long, but you ever try to dig in, try to figure, okay, what is it about what you were taught to either act this way, treat people this way, anonymous notes? It's so wimpy.
Yeah, it's weak.
I mean, especially when you see these backpack-wearing adult men with backwards baseball caps.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them, these conservative women could probably beat them in arm wrestles. I mean, I'm sorry. So just like actually do an arm wrestle with them. You can just settle it that way. But what is it like? It's your generation, man. This is what are you, 30 years old?
I'm 28.
28. So this is your generation.
Yeah, it's my generation.
What does it make you feel about your generation?
It's disappointing. It really is, because all my life I've been grown up by adults, so I'm used to seeing how adults live, not by how children live. And I feel like I don't even want to go back and see where a lot of this generation grew up from, because it'd probably make me sick.
It's infantilization of adulthood too. They're all acting like they're still in their fraternity.
Yeah, they don't want to work. They don't want to grow up.
They're Thursday night seminars in college where they can just vent about how rotten America is.
You're right.
Thanks for the story.
Yes,
we
you're
appreciate
welcome.
it. Love bringing in just regular people. Well, how do they deal with being a Trump supporter in public life? Well, they don't. Some people hide it. He didn't. Well, the Trump administration won a major victory, actually two major victories. We're talking ideologically and constitutionally, but the left is still crying racism. Up next, don't miss it. We'll debate it. In a 5-4 vote, the Supreme Court today upheld the Trump administration's travel restrictions from certain Muslim-majority nations because of national security concerns. Now, writing for the majority, Chief Justice John Roberts said the executive order was within the scope of presidential authority. In her dissent, which she read from the bench, which is unusual, Justice Sonia Sotomayor claimed the travel ban was discriminatory and appeared to be anti-Muslim. Let's debate that with San Francisco attorney Harmeet Dillon, the RNC committeewoman from California, and Washington immigration attorney Alan Orr. Great to see both of you. All right, Alan, here are the 10 countries with the largest Muslim populations. This is the most recent time it was checked. Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Egypt, then bottom Iran, Turkey, Algeria, Morocco. If Donald Trump was targeting Muslim-majority countries, why wouldn't he target the largest Muslim-majority countries in the world?
So I'm not sure exactly the rationale of why he wouldn't target those countries, but in essence, he did target Muslim countries.
But
in
no,
this ban.
if it's based on religion, you would want to hit the most
A rational
populous.
person would want to.
But why did Obama have those on the list?
Well, Obama might have had those concerns as well, but he moved past those concerns. And the difference between the Obama administration and this administration is the time length of the actual bans. And so celebrating today's travel ban restrictions as a win really isn't the case, because what you saw from the court was constant changing. So you're at the third version of the travel ban. It started from a complete class of people, including green card holders and non-immigrant holders, and it moved down to just people who are currently applying for visas. So it's a little bit different in scope and size. And just because you discriminate against one person out of that group doesn't mean you're not discriminating against the whole group as a whole. So I think we should be very careful in saying that this wasn't discriminatory.
Well, so Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Harmeet, you're from India. And this is an issue that, you're Sikh Indian, but this is an issue that's near and dear to your heart. You've studied this issue. I don't think the travel ban rollout, I think Alan's right, it was not the finest moment for the Trump administration for a variety of reasons. PR-wise, communication-wise, the way it was drafted, I would have done it differently, but it's easy to say it in hindsight. But the court here said statements by the president during the campaign were not dispositive. This is a textualist reading of the statute itself that gives the president this broad power in immigration, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Laura. I mean, you're exactly correct. I think that that first travel ban done 7 days after the administration was sworn in was rough in a lot of ways, and I'm really glad that the system has worked so that it's evolved down to the system where the Supreme Court said that it had a lot of safety checks. It allowed a lot of people in on a waiver basis, and the administration has been able to prove to the court that they've already lifted some countries from the ban. So Chad, for example, has come off the list. Iraq, and so we're really looking at a system where even Jimmy Carter had a country on the list. So did Ronald Reagan. So it is not unprecedented. And what the Supreme Court ruled here was very correct, which is that if a statute gives the authority to the president, then the motivation isn't really part of what their consideration should be. It's absolute authority under 8 U.S.C. 1182.
Now,
So,
Alan, we were talking about rhetoric earlier and what rhetoric has done to the discourse in this country. And this is what a former Republican, Steve Schmidt, who advised the successful Lamar Alexander for president campaign and the John McCain, that's a low blow campaign. He's a strategist. But this is what he said about the travel ban. Let's watch.
Today was a fantastic fulfillment of Osama bin Laden's vision by Donald J. Trump. What Osama bin Laden hoped to provoke was a war of civilization, a war between the West and 1 billion Muslims. And so what Donald Trump and this Muslim ban signal to the world is that Muslims are not welcome here.
Jared Kushner, just back from the Middle East, having unprecedented high-level meetings with majority Muslim countries about how to, move forward together, modernize Islam, and perhaps maybe even making peace in the Middle East a reality. Do you agree with what he said there?
I think the message is already clear about whether immigrants are welcome in this country right now or not. So it sort of heightens that already. But I think one of the things as lawyers, as we're having a lawyerly conversation, is to talk about the posture of the court. So what today was decided was about the preliminary injunction. So it actually goes back to a full trial in local court. So the only thing that was won is just the injunction. So we aren't actually finished with everything.
What's the likelihood of success on the merits?
Yeah, but the injunction is 90% of the. That's 90% of the battle.
Yeah,
it's game over once you won the injunction for the most part. So let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, so Harmeet, you can explain that, because if you actually want to stop the travel ban, if you don't stop the travel ban with the injunction, where are you going to go here?
Well,
no,
you might go to discovery.
And any litigator, any litigator can tell you that once you've won the injunction in the United States Supreme Court, the writing is on the wall. The rationales used by the lower courts to knock down this order have been eviscerated by the court. So there's really nowhere for them to go. And I don't think that this is an open issue anymore. I think that liberal heads have exploded. It's time to move on. And hopefully these countries will, using the protocols in the order, be able to remove themselves from the list once they prove themselves to be a place where we can verify who's coming.
Last word to Alan.
Yeah, I don't think my head has not exploded, and we're still on the fighting ground. And the next battlefield will be at the ballot.
It's not exploding. Alan's making a good argument. Okay, but I think Harmeet, other heads are exploding. To say it's Osama bin Laden's fulfillment of his fantasy.
Demagoguery,
this is now, like, Alan's making a good point, trying to make a legal point. This is like Osama bin Laden. If you're going to Osama bin Laden, okay, you kind of lost
hysteria.
The
Nazi. It's everything is hysteria these days.
I guess Nazi has gotten old, so now it's Osama bin Laden. Okay. Love having you both on. Thank you so much. And the left has been long on criticism and sometimes short on cures throughout this current immigration crisis. But up next, a solution that would test the commitment that some on the left have to their own values. Coming up. All right, one of the Angle's favorite political analysts, and that's a high bar, has some innovative suggestions to help solve the current immigration crisis. Victor Davis Hanson has been thinking a lot about how the left can live up to its own rhetoric and beliefs on asylum seekers. The scholar from Stanford's Hoover Institution joins us now to explain. And here to debate him, immigration attorney and author of the book Safe Haven in America, Michael Wilds. Great to have you both. So VDH,
Pleasure.
Give me your suggestion. Lay it on us.
Well, people keep talking about detention centers, and then now there's a suggestion of military camps, but we have over 500 colleges and universities, and it's summertime, and most of their dorms are half, if even half, utilized. Many of them are sanctuary campuses and sanctuary cities, so seems to me that the university is a progressive bastion of these values of welcoming immigrants, and we could contract with the federal government, use idle dorms, and then draw on the resources of the campus for legal help from the law schools, medical centers. It's an ideal place. Kids could intern rather than going to Wall Street or Washington. They could intern.
Oh, great idea.
And it raises the larger question that really the answer to this question is, if you really have an ideological trajectory toward open borders, and you have to live with the other, and you have to go to school with them, you have to live next to them, you have to be empathetic, and you can't just view them as cheap or inexpensive labor. And that's part of the whole point. When Peter Fonda tweets from Paradise, Montana, one of the least diverse places in the United States, about Barron Trump, it would have been so much easier if he had said, you know what, my grandkids are going to go to the LA city schools. We're 70% Latinos, and we're not going to engage in white flight. Mark Zuckerberg could have said, you know what, no more Sacred Heart or Castellet or private academies. Let's live with the other, and let's match our ideology with concrete reality.
Michael, here are some of the endowments of our most prestigious universities, and they all have one version or another of sanctuary policies or centers or immigration attorneys and so forth. Harvard University's endowment is $35.7 billion. Stanford, $22.4 billion. MIT, $13.2 billion. Columbia, paltry $9 billion. That's a lot of money. I mean, they give a lot of scholarships out, which is nice, and some of them go to legal immigrants. But why not open up the campus, at least in the summertime? What do you think?
Well, first, thank you for having me. Look, you know, the transferring of this responsibility to the private sector is just not practical. If the president and the administration had prepared before they literally shut the doors or separated the children from their parents, then it may be part of the solution. Look, let's be practical about this. Food, security, liability insurance. All of these issues have to be vetted, and they can't be vetted by schools that have their own interests. Look, we have a very interesting history with foreign nationals and students going to the schools, and it seems that the schools for years profited from all the tuition, and there was always this interest that they would pony up in Congress and hold their share. But this is, as much as the gentleman intends it, not a very serious solution to a problem.
But Michael, whoa. It's the old saying, put your money where your mouth is, right? Put your money, if you believe in this issue, don't be an individual who skates on the periphery. That's why I really admire people who work with organizations on the ground and helping people in their home countries. I talk about Food for the Poor a lot. They're a great organization. They do work in Central America and Haiti on the ground with the people, helping them be self-sustainable. It's great. But when you sit in like Brentwood or Malibu or Georgetown here in Washington, and then you go put a target on a piece of paper on Stephen Miller and then paper the neighborhood, I'm not impressed. I'm really not impressed.
I'm also not impressed when people don't walk the walk. But shifting the responsibility to the private sector for a government function like this is really not practical.
Well, no, but if you want to send them into the country, what I'm saying is in VDH, you can comment on this. If you want to send them into the country and separate them, they got to go somewhere.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what's symptomatic of this entire issue is that people don't live the consequences of their loud ideology. I'm looking out the window at my farmhouse and I see mostly illegal immigrants up and down my rural road. My kids went to public schools with them. I see them every day. I'm trying to be part of the solution. I don't agree with illegal immigration, but it's a fact and we're dealing with it. But my problem is that universities at which I work, I hear all of this loud acrimony. And yet when I look carefully at where people live, where they put their kids at school, whom they associate, whom they hire to do their dirty work, it's a reality that doesn't match the abstract ideology, and therefore we create cynicism. That's what created Donald Trump, is that all these people said globalization and open borders were wonderful, but the ramification in the real world, how it affected real people, did not affect them. They were able to navigate because of their power, their influence, their wealth. They were able to navigate around the ramifications of their own ideology, and that's where we are today. It's got a highly cynical population that does not trust elite bromides for this problem.
It seems more of an intellectual pursuit than a practical pursuit. We all want to fix this. I'm a law professor here in New York. Every school is doing what they feel their constituency would support. They cannot open their doors and act in a government function without creating more tax burdens on the local municipalities and the community. I'm a former mayor in New Jersey. I can just well imagine the different municipalities that are already overtaxed, the police and the fire and so forth.
Michael, I'm so glad you made that point.
Wait.
You're right. You're right.
That's
There's too much.
The federal government does that all the time.
Yeah, but to secrete
That's what
the
the federal government does all the time. They contract services out to individual entities. They do that all the time.
This was not
with caregivers. They do it.
This was not a planned move. When everybody showed up at the border,
Neither was the boarding crossing. It was not planned.
Yeah,
the boarding crossing, whether it was in 2014 or today, was not planned.
You don't just move people to the school campuses because they're vacant. We don't move people like chattel. These are families that are going to be torn from one another, and going to a college campus may not be the most hygienic thing in the world.
Oh my God! Well, then what are we doing with all their kids going to college
it would be the best introduction to America. Yeah, a pastoral campus and supportive network would be
ideal. I think the gentleman
ideal.
has a lot of time on his hands, and it's a wonderful intellectual pursuit. But from the practicality as a lawyer, trying to administer all the liability and all the exposure and the security, the food and the medical attention, it's just not practical. And you're shifting the responsibility to the state and the city.
Well, right now, let me just, we're out of time, but I think the American people, the working people, who haven't really, most of them haven't had a raise in like 30 years. The median income just starting to go up under Trump, thank goodness. Most of them are like, well, wait a second, like, who's looking out for the blue-collar workers before Trump? And now we're supposed to just flood the country with more low-skilled workers going to come into the country and, you know, drive me out of whatever business I'm in. Maybe it was landscaping before, construction, and I think people are frustrated, so they don't want to pick up the tab either, Michael.
I appreciate the frustration, but these individuals, by and large, are here for our country's mercy and not for our indignation or our judgment, and they're entitled to a day in court. You can't give that to them in a campus that has a lacrosse team and a library and all of that. They need access to lawyers, good medical attention, and the right kind of treatment.
A lot of people want access to lawyers and good medical who are American citizens.
Stanford has some of the best lawyers in the world.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much. Congress, by the way, will hear from that lead FBI agent who sent those vicious anti-texts to his girlfriend tomorrow. Byron York is here. Also, primary results in. We'll tell you what happened. Fox News alert, big news on two fronts. The 7th Circuit Court of Appeals with a huge ruling supporting Trump's sanctuary city policies and a huge upset in New York. Here to discuss both, Fox News contributor Byron York of the Washington Examiner. Byron, you got Peter Strzok's testimony tomorrow. We got so much news at the end of the show. We got to get it in. 7th Circuit basically narrowing the nationwide injunction that one district court judge was able to place on Trump's sanctuary city policy. Jeff Sessions went to the 7th Circuit, said, narrow that scope. They did narrow it.
Really interesting that it came today, because in the big travel ban decision today, Justice Thomas, in his own dissent, brought up the point.
His concurring opinion.
Exactly. He brought up the point. We cannot have these single district judges issuing these nationwide injunctions, causing a kind of a national emergency on whatever cause they want.
Yeah, so one liberal leftist judge in California, Hawaii, can totally shut down a presidential directive.
That's exactly what we saw in the travel ban. It's what you see here, and what we might be seeing is maybe a move in the higher courts to narrow the
jurisdiction of these lower courts so that it doesn't have so much of effect. That's interesting news. Now, Joseph Crowley in New York loses his primary contest today. He was thinking he was going to challenge Nancy Pelosi, correct? Democrat.
Number 4 in the Democratic leadership in the House, widely seen as a challenger to Nancy Pelosi, had a primary opponent for the first time in years. He's a 10-term representative, and there weren't polls on it. There was nothing on it, and he has lost. I mean, people are talking about this like when Eric Cantor lost, just a huge
Every time
loss.
I think of Eric Cantor losing, I smile.
Also, this is another fight, another version of the Bernie Hillary thing, because the woman who beat him tonight wants to abolish Ocasio-Cortez wants to abolish ICE. Wants Medicare for all, wants guaranteed federal
defiantly
employment.
Moved to the left. Yeah. She's defiantly leftist. ICE, basically a terrorist organization, wants to abolish it, as you said, and the list of demands on what the federal government has to spend money on. Up. Free college tuition. I believe that's in the agenda, too.
So this is one of these things that
Wow.
if we weren't so obsessed with talking about Donald Trump every single moment, the divisions inside the Democratic Party would be a huge story.
And this is Ron Klain just wrote that piece, I think it was in The Atlantic yesterday, about how the Democrats cannot give up on white working class voters.
That's a big debate. And on the left, the answer is yes, we can.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of centrist Democrats, kind of an endangered species, who really think that's a big mistake.
Strzok, quick thoughts.
Look for questioners to not really talk so much about his bias. It's kind of like we know that. You don't like Trump. They want to find out what happened in this FBI investigation, and the kind of cutting edge of the House investigation of the investigation is, how did this get started? What was going on before the official beginning of the investigation on July 31st, 2016? Does the official story really hold up here? And I think they're going to try to find out more about that from him, because he knows everything about
Why
this
is it
investigation.
behind closed doors?
You know, they're talking about having a public hearing a little later, but my guess is he volunteered.
Yeah,
they didn't have to fight it.
Yeah.
Let him talk behind closed doors right now.
Those text messages should just be their own graphic novel. They should all be released, acted out on stage. Byron, thanks so much. We'll be right back.